It is my honor to welcome to the stage Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. More importantly, thank you for the work that you do to make this state and country a more fair and equal and decent place. My name is Pete Buttigieg. People like to call me Mayor Pete, that's fine. I'm the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. There you go. It's a city of about 100,000 people that is 2 right turns and 90 minutes up the Indiana Toll Road from this ballroom. A great community that I am proud to call home and still prouder to have led as mayor for most of this decade. I did not realize how special South Bend was when I was 18 years old, itching to go out and see the world. Back then, I thought that success meant getting out of my hometown, which is what I did, only to realize that home meant so much more to me than I thought. But when I was growing up, amid the ruins of the auto industry that left our city in the 1960s, I did not realize that South Bend had the potential for a major renaissance that could help change the way people viewed the trajectory of communities in this so-called Rust Belt. And I certainly did not imagine the role I could play in its comeback. But then there are a lot of things about the world today that I would not have dared to imagine back then, as an awkward 18-year-old wandering the halls of St. Joseph's High School. Back then, I would have believed that you could either be gay or you could be married, but not both. I would have believed that if you were gay, you could either be out or you could aspire to run for office. Not both. That in this country you could live with a same-sex partner or you could serve in the military, but not both. As a kid, I hoped one day to be an astronaut and go to space, but I never would have imagined that one February night in 2019, I could be standing in front of a room full of so many people in Chicago, 37 years old, a veteran of a war in Afghanistan, in my 8th year as mayor of my hometown, glancing at my husband at his table with the First Lady and the Governor of the state of Illinois 10 days after announcing an exploratory committee to run for president. It is amazing what has changed over my young lifetime. In the days since we launched our exploratory committee, I have done countless interviews on the historic implications of a potential out candidacy, what it could mean to have a same-sex first family, on whether America is ready for a gay president. And I've given a lot of other interviews where it didn't even come up because sexual orientation was not considered one of the most unusual or important things to discuss with me when it came to 2020. And that in itself is historic in a way. I came out in 2015 for the simple reason that I was finally ready. I had been struggling with my sexuality for years, and if I hadn't deployed to Afghanistan, I might never have found the courage to come out. But there is something that happens to you when you write a letter and put it in an envelope marked just in case and leave it where your family can find it. It forces you to realize that you only get one life. You only get to be one person. And so when I got home, I knew it was just a matter of time. Inconveniently, that time came in the middle of my re-election campaign. It came while Mike Pence was the governor of Indiana. And since there had never been an out executive in our state, no one knew what the effect would be on my future. Would people in our socially conservative community embrace me and continue to judge me on the job I did for them? Or would they turn on me, unable to look past the fact that who I was something they had been brought up to reject? There was only one way to find out. So I wrote an op-ed in the paper and waited to see what would happen. And to make a very long story short, what happened was that I got reelected with 80% of the vote. I got a lot of questions about why I came out when I did. Was it designed to serve some purpose? In truth, it was designed to serve a very simple and private purpose, which is that I wanted to start dating. When I turned 33, I was a grown man, well-traveled and well-educated, a sitting mayor and a war veteran, and I had absolutely no idea what it was like to be in love. And I had no idea how to get started, but I did what people in my generation do. I used the internet. I got some friends to help me pick the right photos out and started some online profiles and started lining up dates. So one day I was skimming through profiles on an app, not that one. No judgment here, it was just a different app. Anyway, I see this smile, this guy, and I click the box on the right. And again, I'm going to make a very long story short. That guy is a teacher named Chasten who is a grad student at DePaul. We got married in June, and he's sitting right there. So I told that story in a lot more detail in my book, which, by the way, is coming out next week and available for pre-order. Hoping you'll buy it, because that's pretty much how we're paying off the wedding bills. And it's a happy story. But as I was getting ready for today, I realized there's another part of the story I haven't shared before, because it was too hard to think about. It's something that makes me uncomfortable and embarrassed to admit even now, even if it's not going to be surprising to many. And it's the fact that when I was younger, I would have done anything to not be gay. When I began to halfway realize what it meant to feel the way I felt, it triggered inside me something that I can only describe as a kind of war. And if that war had been settled on the terms I might have wished for when I was 15 or 20 or even 25, I would not be standing here. If you had offered me a pill to make me straight when I was in high school, I would have grabbed it and swallowed it before you could have got me a sip of water. It's a hard thing to think about now. There were times in my life when if you had shown me a specific thing or place inside me that made me gay, I would have cut it out with a knife. And the reason it's so awful to think about isn't just the knowledge that so many young people struggling with their sexuality or their gender identity do just that. They harm themselves, figuratively or literally. The reason it's so hard to think about is that if I had had that opportunity, I would never have met Chasten. That the best thing in my life, my marriage, would not have happened. My marriage. Thank God there was no pill. Thank God there was no knife. My marriage is a thing that I cannot even describe without just going into cliches, like talking about how my world went from black and white to color the moment we held hands at the end of our first date. It's the thing that made it possible for me to get through the death of my father, which happened just 1 week ago tomorrow. It was Chasten who lifted up not just me and Mom, but Dad himself through those awful, last days. I wish you could have seen it. How dark the thought that the man I admire and care about and can't wait to share with the rest of the country, and even more importantly, share someday in raising children with him, might not have been part of my life at all. People talk about things like marriage equality as a moral issue, and it is certainly a moral issue in my personal life. It is a moral issue because being married to Chasten has made me a better human being morally, because it has made me more compassionate, more understanding, more self-aware, and more kind to others. My marriage to Chasten has made me a better man, and yes, Mr. Vice President, it has moved me closer to God. You may be religious and you may not, but if you are, and you are also queer, and you have come through the other side of a period of wishing that you weren't what you are, then you know that that message, that idea that there is something wrong with you, is a message that puts you at war, not only with yourself, but with your Maker. So speaking only for myself, I can tell you that if me being gay is a choice, it was a choice made far, far above my pay grade. And that's the thing I wish the Mike Pences of the world could understand. That if you have a problem with who I am, you don't have a problem with me. Your quarrel is with my Creator. All right, back to the happy part. So like I said, we got married in June at our church. It was a beautiful ceremony full of friends and family. People Chasten grew up with, people I served with in Afghanistan. And I am so mindful and so thankful that every minute of this marriage, we are enjoying a freedom that came to us because of the work of people like you. So I stand here not just as a politician in front of a constituency, but as a loving husband saying thank you, thank you, thank you for your struggle to bring us that freedom. Of course, that struggle is not over just because marriage equality has come to the land. That struggle is not over. When several states in this country, including my own home state of Indiana, don't even have hate crimes legislation, the struggle is not over. The struggle is not over when in so many parts of our country it is still perfectly legal to fire someone because of who they love. That's something that must change, and it's why Congressman Cicilline, Congresswoman Kelly, and so many others, thank you. We need a Federal Equality Act now. The struggle is not over when transgender troops willing to put their lives on the line for this country have their careers threatened with ruin, one tweet at a time, by a commander-in-chief who himself faked a disability when it was his turn to serve. That's not right. So the struggle is not over for our community. And it is part of a struggle for freedom and fairness and a better life that goes far beyond the LGBTQ experience. Every American is struggling now to experience true freedom. And as I contemplate a presidential campaign and speak about these issues across the country, this is the thing I most hope to change in the way my party talks about our values. It's no secret that Democrats are policy people, nuanced people, quick to put forward a 14-point plan, slow to explain what our values are. But it is time for us to get comfortable once again talking about values, like freedom. We have for too long let conservatives monopolize the language of freedom because they are so interested in freedom from government, freedom from regulation, and freedom from taxes that they forget about all the other things besides government that can make you unfree. Freedom isn't just about freedom from. It's about freedom to. Not just about freedom from regulation, but freedom to live a life of your choosing. And the gay experience is a prime example of why that matters, because you are just not free if some county clerk gets to tell you who you ought to marry because of their interpretation of their religion. We're also not free as a woman in our country if a male politician or boss gets to take command of your healthcare decisions based on his own politics. You're not free if you're a person of color in this country who does not feel safe driving or even walking in your own neighborhood without the possibility of being treated unfairly or worse by law enforcement. You are not free, are you, President Kerrigan, if you can't organize for a fair day's wage for a fair day's work? Or start a small business because you're afraid that leaving your job means losing your health care? Or if you were prevented from suing a credit card company that gets caught ripping you off? We need to talk a lot more about freedom in my party and in our country, about freedom and about democracy and about security. We need a new vocabulary and a new, bold vision. And the big idea of my entering the 2020 conversation is that the best way to get a new vocabulary for our values is to empower a new generation of leaders. I belong to the school shooting generation. I was in high school when Columbine happened. I belong to the generation that provided most of the troops, like me, for the wars after 9/11. The generation that will spend our adult lives on the business end of climate change. The first economically ever to be worse off than its parents, unless something changes by the time I reach the current age of the current president, which is 2054. Anyone in my generation, just like anyone in the LGBTQ community, knows that politics isn't theoretical, it is personal. And it's at that personal level that politics makes such a difference, a good difference or a bad difference. Because my generation is also the first to know marriage equality as the law of this land for the majority of our adult lives. That didn't just happen. It was the result of struggle. Political struggle, moral struggle, struggle by the people in this room with the courage to make change and bend the arc of history in the direction of justice. So here we are. It's 2019. America is in trouble and needs a fresh start, and I am as optimistic as ever. Running for office at my age, running for office at any age, is an act of deep optimism. And so the next time a reporter asks me whether America is ready for a gay candidate, a gay nominee, a gay president, and I'm not completely sure the answer, I will give them the most honest answer I can think of, and it is this: there is only one way to find out. Thank you, and I'll see you on the road.